Dear 12th class economic students, Assalamu alaikum. In this lecture, we will discuss movements along a supply curve and shifts in supply curve. Let us first discuss movements along a supply curve. Dear students, movements along a supply curve is the change in quantity supplied brought about by a change in price, keeping other factors constant. As we already know that supply changes due to change in various factors, like due to change in own price of a commodity, due to change in price of related goods, due to change in technology, etc. When supply of a commodity changes due to change in own price of the commodity, it is known as change in quantity supplied. Graphically, it causes movement along the supply curve. Thus, movements along a supply curve refer to extension or contraction of supply in response to change in own price of the commodity, other determinants of supply remaining constant. Dear students, when supply of a commodity changes due to change in its own price, there can be two types of changes. Number first, extension of supply, and number second, contraction of supply. Increase in quantity supplied of a commodity due to rise in its own price is called extension of supply, and graphically it is represented as an upward movement along the same supply curve. On the other hand, decrease in quantity supplied of a commodity due to fall in its own price is called contraction of supply, and graphically contraction of supply is represented as a downward movement along the same supply curve. Figure given here illustrates the situation of extension and contraction of supply. In this figure, SS is the supply curve of commodity X. When price of commodity X is say rupees 15, the supplier sells 10 units of commodity X, but when price of X rises to rupees 30 per unit, supply extends to 30 units. Thus, supplier in this case moves from point A to point B on the same supply curve. Thus, movement from a lower point to a higher point on the same supply curve indicates extension of supply, or we can say that upward movement along a supply curve represents extension of supply. Now let us suppose that price of commodity X falls from rupees 30 to rupees 15. The amount of quantity supplied of X falls from 30 units to 10 units. There is another movement in the supply curve from point B to point A. Thus, producer in case of contraction of supply moves from point B to point A on the same supply curve. Thus, movement from a higher point to the lower point on the same supply curve indicates contraction of supply, or we can say that downward movement along a same supply curve represents contraction of supply. Now coming to shifts in supply curve. Dear students, when supply of a commodity changes not due to change in own price of the commodity, but due to change in other factors or other determinants of supply, like due to change in technology, due to change in business expectations, due to change in government policy, etc., then this type of change is known as change in supply, and graphically it causes shifts in the entire supply curve. That is, supply curve in this case shifts either rightwards or leftwards. Thus, shifts in supply curve is caused due to change in non-price factors, that is due to factors other than the own price of the commodity. Dear students, shifts in supply curve are often studied as increase in supply and decrease in supply. When due to change in other factors, quantity supplied increases at the existing price, it is known as increase in supply, and graphically it means a forward shift, or we can say rightward shift or upward shift in supply curve. On the other hand, when due to change in other factors, quantity supplied decreases at the existing price, it is known as decrease in supply, and diagrammatically it means a backward shift in supply curve, or we can say supply curve in this case shifts backwards or leftwards or downwards. Both increase and decrease in supply are caused by factors other than the own price of the commodity. Figure given in this slide illustrates the case of increase in supply, that is when supply increases due to change in other factors of supply. The figure shows that initially Q1 units of beef are supplied at price P1, but due to some changes in non-price factors, generally related to reduction in the cost of production, the supplier is now willing to supply Q2 units of beef even at the same price. That is, even when the price of beef remains constant at P1. In this case, the supply curve shifts forwards, or we can say rightwards, as from S1 to S2. Now, what are the various causes of increase in supply or a rightward shift in supply curve? Some of the important causes of rightward shift in supply curve are given in this slide. First important cause of increase in supply or a rightward shift in supply curve is improvement in technology. Dear students, advancement in technology reduces the number of inputs needed to produce a given supply of goods. Thus, it leads to a fall in cost of production. When costs go down, profits go up. The incentive to supply also goes up. In this case, the producer will produce and hence supply more even at the existing price, thus causing a rightward or upward shift in supply curve. Another important cause of increase in supply is a reduction in factor prices. Reduction in factor prices mean a fall in cost of production. Thus, producer can supply more at each price, which leads to forward or rightward shift in supply curve. Dear students, forward or rightward shift in supply curve is also caused by decrease in price of related goods. Price of related goods or competing goods tend to be in an inverse relationship with the supply of a commodity. If the price of a competing good decreases, it means that the product in consideration is now more profitable compared to its related good. Under this situation, more of the product in consideration may be produced and supplied even at the same price. One more important cause of rightward shift in supply curve is increase in number of firms in the industry. Increase in number of firms in the industry also leads to rightward or upward shift in supply curve. As more people decide to supply a good, the market supply increases even at the same price. Improvement in business expectations prompts higher investment, hence causes a rightward or upward shift in supply curve. Forward or rightward shift in supply curve is also caused by decrease in taxes, which decreases the overall cost of production. On the other hand, grant of subsidy to producers motivates them to produce more, and hence supply increases at the existing price, thus also leads to forward or rightward shift in supply curve. And the last important cause of rightward shift in supply curve is the shift in goal of the firm from profit maximization to sales maximization. Dear students, if the goal of the firm changes from profit maximization to sales maximization, the producer will produce more in order to maximize his sales. thus leads to increase in market supply and hence supply curve shifts rightwards. Now coming to decrease in supply, which is being illustrated with the help of figure given in this slide. The figure shows that initially Q1 units of beef are supplied at price P1, but due to some changes in non-price factors generally related to increase in the cost of production, the supplier is now willing to supply only Q3 units of beef even at the same price. That is, even when the price of beef remains constant at P1, the supplier is willing to sell less quantity of beef as compared to previous level. In this case, the supply curve shifts leftwards, or we can say backwards or inwards, as from S1 to S3. Now coming to the factors which causes a leftward or inward shift in supply curve, these factors are mentioned in this slide. First important cause of decrease in supply or leftward shift in supply curve is use of outdated technology. Dear students, use of outdated technology increases the number of inputs needed to produce a given level of output, thus leads to an increase in cost of production. When costs goes up, profits go down, the incentive to supply also goes down. In this case, the producer will produce and hence supply less even at the existing price, thus causing a leftward or inward shift in supply curve. Another important cause of decrease in supply is increase in factor prices. Increase in factor prices means an increase in cost of production. Thus, producer can supply less at each price, which leads to leftward or inward shift in supply curve. Dear students, leftward or backward shift in supply curve is also caused by increase in the price of related goods. If the price of a competing good increases, it means that the product in consideration is now less profitable compared to its related good. Under this situation, less of the product in consideration may be produced and supplied even at the same price. One more important cause of leftward shift in supply curve is decrease in number of firms in the industry. Dear students, decrease in number of firms in the industry also leads to leftward or a backward shift in supply curve. As the number of firms in the industry decreases, the market supply decreases even at the same price, thus leads to backward or inward shift in supply curve. Erosion of business expectations prompts lower investment, which reduces the supply in market, hence causes a backward or leftward shift in supply curve. Dear students, shift in objective of the firm from sales maximization to profit maximization also leads to leftward shift in supply curve. And lastly, backward or leftward shift in supply curve is also caused by increase in taxes, which increases the overall cost of production. On the other hand, withdrawal of subsidy to producers by government brings about an increase in overall production costs, thus leads to leftward shift in supply curve. So these were the some of the factors which were responsible for backward shift or leftward shift in supply curve. Thank you.